Also, before the video starts, I swear to God, it feels like that there's some of the parts of this video that makes it sound like I'm trying to be sarcastic. I'm not. I swear I'm not. I'm really not trying to sound sarcastic. I had to write out this entire script because I can't do it. I can't just wing it. So, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm being sarcastic. I know why you clicked on this video. You too want to be bequeathed with the wondrous wisdom of how to draw like the wonderful cubic prism. I'll do my best to explain my processes in this video. I've never actually had anyone be interested in how I do things, so you're gonna need to hang in there with me. If you're new here, hi. My name is Cubic, or I ate a cubic prism. I am a digital artist of 6 years who's making YouTube videos to showcase my works. Welcome to my channel. Disclaimer, I am no professional, and this is meant to be informative of my processes. I use the program Ibis Paint to draw all my works, and I only use Procreate when I want to edit the final image using the curves option. I'll be going into more depth on that later. There's 4 brushes which I mainly use. First is called the Painted Pen. I use this to draw all my sketches and use it to render. It's similar to the Fade brush, only it blends colors when you put them on top of one another. Second, we have the Digital Pen. I use this to color in flat colors or when I want a sharper look on something. The airbrush is mostly used for details such as ombre and shading, and commonly used when I'm working on environmental shading, something else I will be going over later. And finally, I have the outline brush. This brush is basically just a brush with a black outline. You can see this when I zoom in on my eyes because it's used for highlights. Both the inside and the outside of the brush can be edited using the settings in Ibis Paint. If you don't have a brush like this available, you can always draw the outline yourself. 3D models are great for setting up scenes, or even just simple poses. I was lucky enough to find a website called Pose My Art. There's a lot of free models to choose from, and also pre-made poses on this website. I really do love it because you can put the camera at any angle and any perspective and position that you want. Here's a few examples of what I've been able to model out before drawings to help me visualize the scenery. I usually break the photo down into simple shapes, so I'm not directly tracing the model's image. This is because, well, my characters have different body builds than the models I'm using for reference, and it's helpful to only use the model as a guideline to show what exactly the pose is supposed to look like. Unless you're just starting out, feel free to use this as practice, of course. Here's the comparison between the original model image and what I ended up sketching. Alright, before putting down my colors, I always select the outside of the drawing with the lasso tool and then I'll invert it. That way, when I create a new layer, I can simply use my brush to fill in the silhouette. You'll find a lot of artists using gray to color in the silhouette. That's because it's softer on the eyes and allows for a more neutral look when adding colors on top of it. After getting the silhouette filled, I'll deselect the lasso tool and create a new layer over the silhouette layer. Make sure to clip this layer to the silhouette layer so it won't go outside the silhouette's edge. You might find me mentioning clipping layers a lot. It's something I use commonly, and so do other artists. When you clip a layer to another, the layer which it is clipped to, the one below, will not draw anywhere else besides the layer it's clipped on. If you unclip it, it may look something like this. After coloring the silhouette, I usually take the sketch layer and put it together with the silhouette and the color layers, or merge them all into one layer. I copy them so I can go back later when I need to fix something. And this is where things get unprofessional. There's a lot of red flags when I actually start shading and or rendering, because a good idea is to make a separate clipping layer with the multiply setting on to shade everything and get a rough idea of where the light source is coming from. This is a step that I tend to skip because I already usually know where I want the light to come from, but it's really helpful for people who are newer to rendering and shading. Here's an example of what I mean shown on screen. You can see that the light is coming from a very specific area, and where the shadows are placed is based off where the light is placed. If you take a closer look at some of my artwork, you'll notice that when I render my pictures, they tend to look messy. due to the brush I use. I don't know why, but I don't prefer sharp line art. Anytime I do it, it just feels wrong to me. Like, here's a drawing here with the panty and stocking art style. It looks good. It does. But in my head, I don't really like it when it comes to my own personal art style. Also, when rendering, I tend to use bright colors as long as they don't overpower the theme of the image. I love adding pops of color to my eyes because it makes the characters feel more alive. Plus, color is fun, to me at least. Alright, we're moving on into a section that's a little more specific. I'm gonna get into a few more specific topics about my art that I want to touch on. And of course, in the comments, you can ask more questions that maybe I didn't touch on in this video, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So, most of my eyes are in the form of a rectangle. You'll sometimes find me curving the rectangle slightly, but I will be consistent most of the time. Also, the rendering of the eyes slightly changes depending on what character I'm drawing. It's meant to play into the character's personality, as eyes are usually the main focus of a character. Here, I gave a small speed paint on how I draw my eyes. They vary a lot, so I'm showcasing a simple example that gives a short step-to-step on the basic looks of how I draw my eyes. Hair, there's nothing too much special about it. It's basically just like your typical anime-styled hair. What's specifically notable about how I render it is the lighting. I draw the highlights similar to like a small squiggle, still keeping that idea that it's actually a highlight. There are two kinds of heads which I usually draw. There's normal, and there's chibi. Chibi heads are more squished, and normal heads just look normal, I guess. I have somewhat longer chins? I don't know how to explain it clearly, so I'm just gonna put pictures on the screen to hopefully show you what I mean. I've mentioned environmental shading before in one of my videos. It's basically the light that's coming from the environment. Examples like, is it dark? Is it bright? Where's the light coming from? Is there multiple sources of light? I'll be using my Agar Agar Cookie and Truthless Reclaws fan art to show you what I mean. So for my Agar Agar Cookie drawing, there is two light sources, the mirror and the crystals in the background. The rest of the environment, it's dark. You can see here that I have lighting from the Shit. See what I mean now? It's basically just a subcategory of shading and lighting. I just call it environmental lighting for simplicity purposes. And finally, I mentioned something earlier about curves. Curves is a function both in IBIS Paint and Procreate. I don't have the IBIS Paint subscription, so I use Procreate because I had previously bought it before I started using this. What the curves do is they just edit the hues and the contrast of the image. It looks like this in Procreate. All you really need to do is mess with the settings till you get something you like. Sometimes I'll make it brighter or darker or even enhance the hue of a specific color. And that's basically it. I've never been asked to explain my drawing processes, so this is totally new to me. I am encouraging anybody who got to the end here to ask specific questions in the comments if needed, because there may be some specific things I didn't mention in here that you're still wondering about, and I will be glad to answer those questions. Bye. See what I mean now? It's basically just a subcategory of shading and lighting. I just call it environmental Bro! I'll use my Agar Agar Cookie drawing and my Truthless Reckless and make sure to clip this layer, so